evening, wherever you are joining from. We welcome you to Living in Between Worlds. Today's discussion is going to be on living in uncertainty. For those of you who are new to Living in Between Worlds, we are a collective who come together, first, second generation immigrants, or diasporas of the world, wherever you are. We come together here to hold space for one another, to provide a loving container for us to fully express ourselves, to be able to talk about topics that we wouldn't normally talk about amongst friends or colleagues. It really kind of comes back to what it means to live in between worlds in different areas of our life and different circumstances of our life. And so we invite you to join us. We have bi-weekly live calls here, and we also have private discussions every other week as well through meetups, and the link is included in the description. So we invite you to come join us in our next discussion on this very same topic on living in uncertainty. So today we have Nuria, who's going to be facilitating and guiding us through the discussion. And we also have Sonia here to join us, and myself, Vanessa. So I'm going to pass this off to Nuria. Thank you, Nuria, for choosing this topic.
Thank you for your beautiful introduction. As always, it's magical. Not everybody knows, but we have like a list of topics that we like when we get together and we create this brainstorm. It's like, okay, these are the topics that are coming up. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good topic. It would be great to talk about this. And then I was like, okay, I feel like I have this need of talking about something. So I was like, okay, buddy, what do you really want to express here? So I went to the list, and I was just literally with my like pointing with my finger on the screen, and I just stopped, and this was the topic: living in uncertainty. And then I start like looking at a topic inside of me, and then I look at what was happening around in my life around that topic, and lots of uncertainties. So before I jump on what is uncertainty for me, I would like to open the floor to you guys to see, like, what is uncertainty? Like, or no, even better, what is something that is certain for you? Because uncertainty, we can go through different paths that today we know, but what is certain? What is something that, yeah, is that, and what is the difference between certainty and facts? Who wants to go first?
I can go first. Wow, this topic is such a huge topic already. Like, there's so many ways we can go, but I think for me, what I'm certain of is this moment. This is the only thing I can truly say for a fact. I know is for certain. I know certainly I am here. At least, I perceive that I have 10 fingers. I'm sitting on my chair in this room. This I know. This is kind of the only thing I can be certain about. And it's so fascinating to me because when I think about all the things that I kind of go through in my mind day to day, and thinking about, thinking the things that I know, even just saying like tomorrow is another day, just to say that, it's like I can feel certain about it, but truly, is that actually something I could truly be certain about? I can't. I don't know. I really don't know. So really right now in this moment is what I can completely be certain about And I think this is why, to me, it's a continual reminder that this is the most precious moment, that this is the most precious thing in this world, is right here, right now. Whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm feeling, it's like, what do I want to use this space for? What do I want to use this moment for? Do I want to be kind of caught up in what all the things that I should have done yesterday, or do I want to be caught up in all the things that I want to accomplish tomorrow? Or is it really just like fully allowing myself to experience the now, which has been such a journey for me to get here, because I have been so much in past thinking and future thinking. But I'm just gonna leave it there. For me, really, it's right here, right now. This is what I know. That's all I can truly be certain about. Yeah.
Thank you, Vanessa. Sonia.
I love this. I love all of this. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, really wanted to take a time to kind of like congratulate myself for all the kind of healing work and kind of introspective journey work that I have done, because I can feel like the kind of like the leftover of like bad anxiety that I used to have in like few years. And of course it's like it kind of makes a comeback here and there, but it's like for me to like willingly choose to talk about uncertainty and certainty, that would have been such a like triggering topic for me like a few years ago. And I mean, I could sense when you asked the question of like what is something that you're certain about, I could totally feel kind of like my body being like, ah, and then I'm like, it's okay. Kind of like what Vanessa said, it's like pretty much we're here in the now. And so, yeah, it's really funny that we talk about this topic, because I have struggled with this kind of philosophical question from the time where I was a kid. Like, I remember having like, even uh, questions about like life and death and things like that, and my parents were like, but why like why are you concerned about these things? And it was just kind of like my interest, like my mind was constantly looking for certainty, looking for like what is the reality, what is like what happens after that, what like how do I know like if I'm really safe or this or that. And I used to really grapple with a lot of these questions. And I would say where I'm at right now with that, because I think it's an ongoing journey of kind of redefining our relationship to a concept. I really like what Vanessa said about certainty as being what is in the present moment, kind of like what my five senses are experiencing, what is, how my body is, breathing and it's alive, and, all the kind of information and energy that I'm processing, that is certain. I like that aspect. If not, the other aspect that let's say I'm working towards believing that at a level of certainty, let's say, is that I can count on the relationship that I have with myself as being one of those things that is like certain. And for sure we could I have like these questions of like, but what if I have an accident and my brain gets damaged or something? Well, but I go like really kind of like far away. But in all honesty, I do think that that relationship with yourself, that kind of like, when you meditate, when you're like experiencing something, looking at a mountain or something, when you're like in that silence and you're just observing yourself and being conscious of your own like awareness and all of that. I don't know, for me, that's kind of that link is what I call like the relationship with myself, I guess. And to me, that feels like Vanessa said, that feels certain, that feels tangible, that feels safe in a way. Even when you can watch your body and your mind be like, ah, but it still feels like you're like, I don't know, watching your own awareness in the background. I don't know. So yeah, that's my working definition on what is somewhat certain to me right now.
It's just like, you know what, while I was listening to you, like when you just said the word safe, I was writing down the word safe because I wanted to bring up that concept, because for me, after dealing with depression, and when I look back to those days, I can clearly see how much certainty and uncertainty occur the same for me, because I can take both for granted. So if I'm sad, it's like, it's okay. I can take that for granted. I don't know the uncertainty of the outcome of that sadness. So because I don't have to choose anything there, uncertainty is for granted. Like life of misery, life of anger, life of anxiety, I can take it for granted. And I can take for granted being content, being happy, being alive. I can take for granted both. So how much for you guys this space of certainty or uncertainty makes you feel safe? Because when you know the outcome of uncertainty, that at the end of the day is uncertainty, you know that that's what is going to happen. It's going to happen, more uncertainty. And that's, you feel safe. So how it is for you?
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is just that there is certainty in uncertainty. And that for me gives me that safety as well. Like it's like, that is also something that I know that it's always going to be uncertain. So do I want to fear the unknown, or do I want to just, like, there's different ways I can approach it. I could be super excited about it. I could be in that anticipation, kind of like worry about it. Or I could be like in this place of enthusiasm of like, ooh, like, I wonder what's going to come. And like, you know, so I think for me, yeah, it's been definitely like opening myself up to loving the mystery of it. And I something that came up for me last year that I love as well, we talk about nature quite a bit here, and so I'm going to bring this in because I love the forest and I love being in the forest. And when you walk through when you go off trail and you walk through the forest, it's like there's this mystery in walking through the forest. You don't know what's to come. You don't really know where you're going, right? But there's just so much beauty around you that you can't, like you had mentioned, you can either take for granted or you can really allow yourself to experience, right? And so there's a little bit of like fear as well, but it's kind of like, ooh, what's going to come around the corner kind of thing, right? Like, so I think this is where it's like, for me, it's allowing myself to remind myself of that experience, that there's nothing wrong with having fear of the unknown. There's nothing wrong with, it's just adding to the adventure. Like it's really adding to the experience of it. And, you know, and I think as human beings, we kind of want to be a little scared sometimes, right? Like we want to kind of have that thrill of life, right? And I think that's where it's like we could kind of take it really far and become terrified, or just really enjoying the thrill of it. And I think I've always been someone who is a high risk taker. I love putting myself into situations where I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm going, I'm going to do it anyways, just because I want to see what will happen. So I think just being able to kind of embrace the thrill of it has been really useful for me. Now going back to safety, it's kind of, like, I think it really comes back down to like, I will never know what will come. So I can be certain of that. And in that space, I can feel safe knowing that really at the end of the day, no matter how much planning that my brain wants to do, which it will always, like, I mean, I woke up this morning in bed and I was already thinking about my, what I wanted to create today. And I was like, wait a second, I'm in bed right now. There's nothing I can do. Like, even me thinking about this right now isn't actually creating anything until I actually take the action, right? So me being in that mindset right now isn't really like, it's taking me away from this moment. So I'm just gonna like let that go. And really recognize that, like, yeah, there is so much gold and so much space in this moment that for me, that to me is the safety, and really allowing myself to see that, so the safety exists when I don't fear what's coming, and allowing myself to see that right here, right now is what's safest for me, because it is what I know. Yeah, I kind of went on there, but just, I'm just gonna leave it there. Thanks.
And before I pass it along to Sonia, a couple of things came up while I was listening to you, because before we started this conversation, we were talking about, when you're putting together things to take action towards something, you're knowing to be present in front of the circumstance. And we mentioned that your body is never going to put you in a situation where you're going to hurt yourself. So when you mention like, okay, if I'm laying down on bed and my brain is telling me this and that, but my body is saying, hey, settle down. So that, and it takes a journey, I get that, to trust on your body to say, I'm safe. Like, regardless of the scenario of certainty or uncertainty, both, your body knows both. Your body really knows both. And so something that I wanted to share today, that it was when I realized that as a newcomer, I became an expert in uncertainty. Everything was uncertain, everything. Like my daily presence in life was absolutely uncertain. And I think I shared with you the other day that I'm co-writing a book with a bunch of newcomers about, it's going to be an academic book. So yesterday, one of the editors came back to us to say, hey, we had 2 reviewers, and one of them said, the book is ready to go. But the second one said that there are a couple of things missing. And I just want to read you one of the things that are missing, because that creates the next question that I'm going to ask you. What is the book's uniqueness? How is this book unique and different from other books from newcomers? So I have to say that when I read that question, like, my body was boiling. Like, I was so mad, because I got present to, this reviewer wants the certainty that this book is going to be a hit, that he's going to create a great and juicy revenue stream through our uncertainties. So it took me a while to read the question, put myself back, ask my body what is available for me on his uncertainty. And then I thought, everybody has the right to look for safety. It's a human right. And then my uncertain spirit was telling me, well, yeah, but remember when you were experiencing what you wrote, it was awful. So why do you have to put more time to give someone else certainty? So it was like really tricky, because at the end it's not always you, right? You are surrounded by people who have their own uncertainties. And that's so challenging. And again, as I said, it's a journey that you just build up that skill. But I want to ask you guys, and that's this is the next question. Growing up, how did you see your parents dealing with uncertainty? Because now we three talk about uncertainty because we know we've been getting like lots of introspection, lots of personal development, lots of, why not, suffering and pain to be in life with that uncertainty. So, but it wasn't that simple, right? Like, you are at home and you see your parents, newcomers, experiencing that uncertainty. And I'm sure, Vanessa, you have a juicy story, and you, Sonia, as well, because you came here really young. So you had your own uncertainty, and at the same time looking at your parents' uncertainty, that creates something else. So for whoever is listening to us, I want them to listen that uncertainty has potential, and that whatever uncertainty meant in your family when you landed to Canada was a treasure that makes the difference for whoever in your present moment requires certainty, as this reviewer requires certainty from this book.
I thank you so much for sharing that story on the reviewer. And yeah, honestly, I get super, I totally understand that, like in the world of like marketing and like sales, there's always like this typical question of like, well, you have to sell your unique value proposition and so on. Which, I mean, I get it that that's kind of like the rules of the game and whatever. And also, it makes me deeply annoyed that this is still the way we do things, because it kind of caters to that very kind of like mental and yeah, like mental energy, like persuade, trying to like persuade and like, or like manipulate or something, so that, yeah, I don't know, I totally, it's funny that you share your story, because when I was listening to you, I didn't know what your reaction was going to be, in the sense that I'm like, oh, like, let's see what is her interpretation of the story. But much like you, I would have been like super boiling with anger too, and be like, what do you even mean by that question? But like you said, it's very good that to think of seeking certainty as people's mechanism to feel safe. And when we see it through that lens, I find, well, I mean, in my case, I find I can have a lot more compassion in that sense, because I'm like, oh, it's like, oh shit, yeah, sometimes me too, I do look for certainty. And again, as someone who struggles with kind of generalized anxiety and OCD, this whole like reassurance seeking mechanism, it's something that I'm very familiar with. And I have been both in the giving end, being the person kind of requiring certainty from another person, and also when I have seen someone else do it to me, it also feels a little bit off. But anyway, that was just like a parenthesis to what you share. In terms of your question about my parents, something that really came to my mind, I think I have pretty cool parents. And something that I have really admired in them is their resourcefulness and their belief in their own resourcefulness. And I mean, my mom to this day, she still has the saying, she has the saying of like, Dios provee, which translates to like, God provides. And it's hilarious because she's not a religious person at all. Like, they never force me to go to church or anything. I'm always like, Mom, what God? Like, what God do you even believe in? And she's always like, whatever you believe in. It could be the universe or nature or whatever. But she has this saying of kind of like, Dios provee, God provides. And to me, again, let's say for the people who don't relate to the religious type of language, that is basically a belief on your own resourcefulness, or on the universe resourcefulness, or on the combination of your own So I think in general, I did see them deal with uncertainty in that way, kind of like trying to tap into their inner resources. And I mean, and at times, I don't know, it's like, on one hand, I have always been really kind of aligned with that idea. Like, my parents have not done things like other people, and at times it's like other people in the family were like, but you shouldn't do that like that, or you shouldn't, again, people trying to bring their certainty, their mental ways of doing things, and be like, oh, but you should do this and that. And at the same time, they have managed to pull moves from different countries. Like, I have been like, I don't even understand like the physics of how you guys are able to like it's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's something that I really admire. And yeah, it's I would say in general it has been a rather resilient, sorry for the noise, resilient way, and a way where they really try to, they really have this belief in their own resourcefulness, which is something huge for me. And it's a bit like the antidote for uncertainty, I would say, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sonia. Vanessa, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sonia, for sharing. That's such a refreshing perspective, because, when Nuria had asked the question, I went to like, what uncertainty, like my parents, like, and I think it's common with the Asian culture, is that you put up a facade of, you're just certain, you just are very certain of what you're doing, what you're choosing. And there is no sense of like, there's so much shame behind being uncertain, and so it's so interesting, because it brought me back to like, holy crap, like, yeah, I grew up with like this sense that I always had to be certain of what I wanted to do with my life, and I think that did serve me, because I did, I kind of similar to what you had experienced, really trusting in my own resources and really trusting in the decisions that I made, because I was taught to just be certain of what you do and who you are, and just like do well, you know? And so and where it didn't really serve me was this idea of like not allowing myself to be in uncertainty, and that like thinking that, oh my God, if I don't know, if I'm in doubt, then there's something wrong with me. Right. And so, and it was so interesting because like I wrote down the word should, because you had mentioned it. And I was like, yeah, like, I think because everybody around me were so certain of kind of the ways that they were doing things, that I received a lot of shoulds. You should do it this way. You should do it that way. Right. And I just accepted that as being like, this is my truth. Like I should be doing this. And so now recognizing as an adult, I continued to have that dialogue in my own mind. Like I should be doing it this way. I should be doing that way. And continuing to do that with myself. And I should know. And you know, and the thing is like the I should know piece has really kind of, like, that's where it's really caused myself a lot of internal suffering, is just this being in, you know, when I felt lost and being in this place of depression, it was just like, even denying that I was in depression because it's like, I should know. Right. And so, but then with that dialogue, I just kept kind of like pushing myself down even more and more and more, not recognizing that. So, yeah. And I think that's where it's like, it's been so freeing to be able to recognize that, oh, okay, it's okay to have uncertainty. It's okay to not know. And to allow myself to actually embrace that. Like I mean, even up till now, like even as for my career, you know, just thinking that as a coach, I'm supposed to show up as a certain way. That to me has just been like, I had to start asking myself, like, why do I feel so trapped? And it's because that dialogue was still there. Like, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And then, so I'm just loving the journey that I'm on, because I feel like that this is kind of what I'm here to experience, is like, I take on these labels and then I put myself in this box of like certain, you know, quote unquote certainty of like I shoulds. And then it's like the unwinding of that, and, you know, and then allowing myself to open, like, have the boundaries dissipate and really kind of like come out of it, in the sense of like, okay, I'm actually in this space of like, well, kind of similar to what you were saying, Sonia, like being in the knowing of who you are, right? Like, I think just being certain that in my own creative genius as well, like, and trusting in that, allowing that to be certain, and then therefore everything else can be uncertain. Like the way I do things can be uncertain, and allowing myself to play a little bit more with that, and well, just really dive into play with it, play with the uncertainty, play with like what I'm feeling right now, what I'm experiencing right now. But yeah, it was really interesting to kind of like recognize, oh, okay, this is the experience. The human experience is like, yeah, we're always going to be told kind of what to do, other people's certainties, and then we take that on, and then it's like, well, we coming back to decision making, we get to decide, do we want to take this on as our own certainty? Is this something I want to feel certain about, or is this somebody else's certainty? And really kind of doing that check-in, that self check-in of what that is. But yeah, this is really fascinating. Had a good aha there. So thank you for sharing that question, Nuria.
And in my household growing up, uncertainty simply didn't exist because my family never took risk, any kind of risk. Like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Like, no. So when I came to Canada, literally was like I didn't have any kind of reference point to go through an adventure like that. That was just like insane, right? For me to do. And I remember like a boyfriend I had in Canada, an incredible dude. I remember one day we had this argument where he was telling me, no, it's just like this way of being that you sometimes you choose to be is hurting me so much, like so much. So please just promise me that this won't happen again. Never. So, I was looking at his uncertainty, at his desperation, at his hope, right? That I represented that safe space for him to be him. And like that dialogue that you mentioned, Vanessa, about, wow, like this is risky and I don't have a reference point. So I remember that at the end of that conversation, I said, listen, I really want to work out this relationship, right? But I cannot promise you that this will never happen again. I can promise you that I'm going to be more aware of the impact, but I cannot do anything about that uncertainty. Same thing happened with my little one the other day. She came, Mom, I want to know if we're going to do this or that. And I was like, I don't know. Like at this moment, it's not something that is on my creation space. So like, but I want to know. And she was having a breakdown. Like, I want to know. I need to know because I need to plan. I need to know. I require that structure. And I did the same. I cannot promise you that. So I highly believe that uncertainty is something that we have to teach. It's something that we have to create the space for people to discover how to be in those moments, because you become a really creative person. It's more than being resilient, it's to create a new way of being. So I want to ask you guys, at which point we are responsible for the people that matter to us uncertainties? So at which point or is there a midpoint, or is only, put it together? This is your uncertainty and this is my uncertainty. How do you handle that uncertainty? And I mean, I started with the bigger scope, right? Like family or this reviewer, like these social interactions in life. But what happens in our intimate circle, right? Where uncertainties are showing up constantly, second by second.
I can go. I think right now I'm more at a stage where I'm rather maybe perhaps on the more extreme end of, yes, let's all swim in uncertainty. Partly because I have been on the other end. Again, when my anxiety, my OCD have been really bad, I have been completely in the super rigid way. So of kind of like needing certainty and being, that kind of person that's like, but no, you need to tell me exactly what's going to be, the next 3 months so that I can plan for this, for that, blah, blah, blah. And so in my journey, I have come to realize that that view does not serve me, because the world is really complex and there's way too many people with their own agendas and their own kind of minds and desires and paths and so on, that it's just impossible to try to control everything. And yet there's also that cultural conditioning of kind of uncertainty being something, like uncertainty seen as a problem. And something that came to mind in discussing all of this big topic of uncertainty, it's kind of like what the role of like insurance companies in modern society, because insurance companies are literally a huge industry. Like, I don't even know how big, how much money they make, but that it's literally a model. And I'm always fascinated by this. I swear I have to go read like the anthropological origins of that, but like it's literally an industry that benefits off people's fear and need for safety, and that very kind of like, yeah, that primal desire to be certain, which in my opinion it also comes back to this desire to kind of like survive. And it's like, am I going to be safe? Am I going to be here tomorrow? And so there's the societal pressure to really see uncertainty as a problem. Personally, with my own healing journey, I have come to realize that uncertainty, in my opinion, it's best off when it's framed as not a problem. In my personal relationships, I try to have a policy of tolerating the uncertainty on both parts. I wouldn't promise something that I cannot, that I'm not certain that I can deliver. And at the same time, I wouldn't want to ask from someone to promise me something with a degree of certainty that I'm like, does not even exist. So I'm more of an advocate of kind of like, we should kind of dissolve the certainty. It's the need for certainty. Now, it's definitely an uncomfortable way to operate, especially at the beginning when we are not used to kind of challenging, when we're not used to challenging, and when we're not used to kind of generating our own emotion on purpose, when we're kind of relying a lot on other people to kind of give us that sense of certainty, because we don't yet know how to kind of talk to ourselves, soothe ourselves, and so on. It's definitely kind of this like uncomfortable to live in that uncertainty, to have that have your mind ask you questions and you kind of respond to be like, well, I don't know how that's going to be. I have a trip planned with my family. My mind, it's like trying to fill the gaps and being like, what should I bring, and so on. And I'm not saying that planning, I mean, we should honor planning. It's great that we have a brain that can plan, fine. But I can sense it when my mind tries to go into the micro detail. And I can see that it's a protective mechanism, right? It's like a fear of, oh my God, if I don't bring my sandals of this kind, I will be uncomfortable during my vacation. And then, either I will be judged, or I will judge myself, or I'll be uncomfortable or something. So it's funny because it's like, yes, planning, it's a great skill, but very quickly it can also turn into like that. It can feed that certainty, graspiness, and need that goes more on like the anxiety, kind of insecure side. But yeah, I'm more of an advocate of like, we should teach kids and all of that to live more with more uncertainty. And it's like, it seems like a dangerous way of living. And I mean, take it to the extreme, honestly. It's almost, I mean, I remember using this question, and I still use it from time to time, but really check in with yourself and be like, hey, if I were to like be gone tomorrow, like, would I be happy with the life that I'm living? Would I be living with my values? Would I be like, at peace or excited or however? And yeah, that is a point. I went from like being extremely afraid. One of my anxieties and obsessions I had was like dying. And I really had to kind of make peace with that, and to just really be like, hey, the truth is we don't know we don't know what's going to happen in our relationships, in our, day-to-day life, but also with the life that we have. So I don't know. It's a dangerous way of living, but I think, I don't know, I prefer it than trying to live in my mind, and for, what's for, right? So yeah, I'm more on the extreme of like, yes, uncertainty, let's dive deep.
Tanya, I think it's so interesting, right? Like, because I think this is the thing, like society has actually taught us to fear uncertainty, fear the unknown, right? Like a risk is a dangerous thing, right? But I think it's like with anything in life, it's like just shifting our perspective, right? And I found like, I used to ride a motorcycle and everybody would be like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. Like, and, for a while there, I actually allowed myself to like, yeah, every single time I like jump on this bike, I am risking my life. Today, I might not be here by the end of the day, by the end of this trip, I might not be here, right? Am I willing to take this risk? But really, at the end of the day, if we really think about it, like we're always taking risks. We're always, I think the moment we step outside of our room, outside of, kind of where, and we're meet with another environment where the brain sees it as a risk, right? And I think for me, what I have to remind myself of and what really works for me is really understanding how the brain works and that survival mechanism. And I think about my dog because he is just so in the moment. And like when I see him running through the forest, it's like he's like going through logs, he's jumping over logs. And it's just like, he's just so in it. He knows exactly he doesn't care that the bushes are like kind of whacking him or anything, right? He's just going for it. There's no like, I need to know what's next before he jumps to the next log. And it's just so fascinating watching it. And then there's moments when he's just like on edge and he's just like, I need to sniff out everything. And so it's just kind of like a reflection of kind of how our brain works. It's like, it's always going to be, when it's not in play, it's going to be kind of like alert and looking for danger. But if we're allow ourselves to kind of embrace the moment and go and play, it's just like, we're out of that survival part of the brain, right? And kids are also an amazing example. Like the difference between us and kids is just the age, right? Like, it's like, who says that we can stop like playing and being in the moment like kids, right? Like, this is where I think for me, it's just like the uncertainty, we can neither fear the uncertainty or love the uncertainty, like play with the uncertainty, or think that it's a danger kind of thing, right? And so I love that for me, like just being able to shift out of this fear of the uncertainty, fear of like the unknown, being that place of, and I think, kind of coming back to what we had discussed earlier and bringing in other people, I, for a very long time, was trying to make everyone else in my life certain about who I am, and that's where the people pleasing comes in, right? Like, being in that place of like, okay, let me tell you something, let me say something, let me do something in order for you to feel safe, in order for you to be certain of yourself and all that. And so I think that that's just such an exhausting way to live. And so, I think about my relationship with my partner, yesterday, he kind of mentioned to me, he's like, yeah, like he's been kind of looking at a brewery that's up for sale, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna like look at the numbers. And of course, like right away, the uncertainty showed up, my fear brain showed up. But because I have this relationship with no, like understanding how my brain works, I just allowed it to be, okay, yeah, this is just fear kicking in. This is just my, you know, a very natural way for me to respond is to be like, oh crap, what's going to happen? Right? Like danger, danger, danger. Right. So in that moment, I can choose again and be like, okay, yeah, it is uncertain. That is what I know. It is uncertain. And he's in uncertainty as well. And let's kind of see how we can play with this. Let's have fun with this. Let's explore. Like, you know, I could feel myself wanting to reject him and say no to him right away. But I was like, okay, just breathe through it. Just allow myself to just hang back. Because all the shoulds started coming, right? But it's really about like, okay, understanding what I'm experiencing isn't whether it's actually, is this coming out of fear, or is this actually coming from that place of love? Am I truly kind of like being like my dog, like kind of embracing the moment, going moment to moment and jumping through these hoops and all that? Or am I like stopped here and kind of sniffing everything around and being in like high alert mode, right? So I think just being able to distinguish and pause, give yourself that pause of like, let's just check in. Let's just really check in with what is actually true in this moment, has really served. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I love your dog, by the way. So, yeah, I was thinking of the importance of uncertainty in our lives, the importance of putting in place a structure to practice uncertainty, because in my own experience today, I know for a fact that when I trust in my body to guide me to go through the uncertainty, I know that I'm going to put my wisdom on service to make bigger choices. And that breakthrough wouldn't be possible if I'm not in the space of allowance to receive the uncertainty. And also, I would say that uncertainty includes receiving judgment and embracing it. You know, like as I told you guys that in my family growing up, uncertainty wasn't even like a possibility. So think I'm on my second marriage, and I met my husband in 2020 in the middle of COVID on Facebook. 3 months later, we got married, and you know, we are okay. But those, like, just going through that, I miss so many friends, so many family members because of their judgment, because I was going through such an uncertain path through their lenses that it wasn't acceptable. So today I'm grateful because I took that chance, because I trusted on my intuition, I trusted on my body, I trusted on my senses, I trusted on the energy of the present moment. I trusted that uncertainty was certain in my life. And it was just this sense of, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. So I don't know, guys, if you have like a final thoughts. I really want to be mindful of the time, because we're always like passing the time because we got so excited. So I don't know if you have any other thought around judgment as an ingredient to be in the uncertainty. Any of you who wants to go to give final thoughts?
Sonia, go ahead. I can wrap up.
Well, yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nuria. That is so amazing. Yeah, I think something that Vanessa mentioned about remembering the functions of our brains, our bodies, like studying a little bit of like I don't even know what we would call like this field, but getting any kind of understanding about the basic biology and all of that. I think it's really key to have that refresher, because I mean we learn these things like in high school or later on if we get into like sciences or whatever, but it really helps to kind of normalize what we feel, because of course we are in bodies that are fragile. I mean, it's not like we have like some animals that have super protective layers. Our bodies are like very fragile when you think about it, and it's like we live in a dangerous world. So to have that understanding and that compassion, that a lot of this need for certainty is a need for safety, and that at times too, when other people in our family or in our tribe, people in our group, in our social group that kind of want to protect this the survival and the cohesion of the group and the identity, to understand that of course they might be judging us, and in part might be because they're afraid of kind of their own worldview uncertainty getting shaken, getting challenged, getting uh, destroyed or whatever. So to have that in mind, to be like, hey, we go through life with moving. At times we feel more risky, at times we feel more risk averse. If I'm going through a season of kind of like bad mental health, or I'm not feeling well physically, I'm probably not going to sign up for a marathon or something new like that. We have to be smart also, and like Nuria said, trust the kind of the guidance of the body, to understand that we have different modes, and to have that compassion too, that it's okay that we don't become super risk averse overnight, and it's okay too that we have that craving for certainty at times as well, but just to be conscious of it all.
Thank you, Sonia. Yeah, one more thing I just want to add with the aspect of judgment is that we can either, like the judgments will always come, whether it's from the other person or within our own minds. I think that's where it's like seeing it as a protective mechanism of the brain. Like I see any kind of like shoulds and all that is actually a way for the brain to say, hey, no, just hold off, be safe, stay here, don't go out of the cave, right? Like really understanding that at the end of the day, those judgments are, it's a fear response, and allowing that to be okay. And I think that for me has really served me, whenever I receive like a comment or an opinion from my other half, it's just like, okay, I'm choosing to think that this is a fear response for him, and I'm going to allow him to just move through this response and not make it mean anything about me and what I'm choosing. So I think that just focusing on that one thing has been very useful for me. So I invite all of you to come and join us on March 26th. It's a Saturday at 10 a.m. where we will continue this 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we will continue this conversation and extend into kind of, we'd love to hear from you and what your thoughts on uncertainty or certainty are, because I think that's the thing. It's like when we share our experiences, we're able to kind of learn from one another. And, I've received so much from the both of you today, and it's been such a blessing of and I think this is where, like, when we allow ourselves to hear other perspectives, we're kind of reminded of what's possible for ourselves, right? What's possible, whether we want to take it on or not. But, you know, I find whenever I come out of these conversations, there's always more that comes up afterwards, right? More questions, more things that I can navigate and be curious about. So I definitely invite all of you to come join us. Yeah, the link is in the description, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Nuria, for this topic and running us through today. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.